Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and violin tutor. If the violin is shaking when you're trying to do vibrato, that is the number one sign that you are attempting vibrato too soon. Number one, the first thing you're going to need is a violin. I have been playing the violin since I was 4 years old. I went to university and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in music.
With the amazing talent that's Alison Sparrow. Alison, come out here.
So bear with me if there are any technical hitches, I'm sure it'll be fine. For about 5 years I was an examiner for the London College of Music. And over the years I've seen basically the music world from every kind of possible view really, and because of that it has enabled me to write my own violin course. Hello everyone, so there we go, that's kind of all you really need to know. And don't forget guys, anyone can learn to play the violin. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. So welcome all again to another weekly live session. I'd only just realised that I hadn't actually scheduled this to go live, even though obviously everybody knows now that I always go live at the same time on Friday. So that was my own silly fault, but here we are anyway. Let's just give it a couple of minutes just for people to jump on. In the meantime, hello Chris, nice to see you again. And I do have a question from continuation from last week. It was a question from Amy. She said something about when do strings, I think it was something about when do strings wear off. And I think she kind of replied after that saying that I hadn't quite got the, I got the wrong end of the stick with her question, but I kind of feel like what she was asking was, how long does it take for the coating of strings to wear off? But also how long does it take for that to wear off in terms of how long you're going to be using this for? So I think what you got to remember is that when you buy strings, I'm talking decent strings, you know, not the kind of the cheaper ones, but the nice branded ones that you get. Parastro, I can speak for exclusively because I only really tend to use Parastro. I've used a lot of D'Addario strings. The D'Addario strings are very metal strings. They don't really suit my violin. I think they're fantastic strings. They just don't suit my personal violin. But I would still be more than happy to recommend something like Pro Arts or Zyx or something like that. That's from the D'Addario range. Hello Tracy, hello DIY Slime Lab, hi Estrella 24. So this is kind of twofold. So when you buy a set of strings, if you're buying a set of a nice set of Parastros or something like that, they will have a coating on them. Now that coating is what is going to kind of give you that nice sound. So that can take you a little bit to kind of play. You want to kind of take a little bit of that coating off, and by take off I mean you're not actually physically rubbing or taking anything off, you're just playing it off. So when you put a new set of strings on, it probably takes them a good couple of weeks to kind of get into it before enough of that coating that's on them wears off so that you're getting a good amount of sound from them. The second part of that is how long that actually takes. Once you've got to your ideal coating, whatever you want to call it, how long that actually takes to wear off. And that is the ultimate question. How long is a piece of string? Because it kind of depends on you, how often you play and all that kind of thing. But I would say on average, if you're just a beginner, or you're just starting out or anything like that, or you've been playing a little while and you're just sort of playing a normal amount of times per week, you know, every day, something like that, and you're not playing hours and hours and hours, you're not a professional violinist or a professional musician, then I guess you would probably be looking at replacing these every 9 to 12 months, ideally. As I said last week, you definitely want to be replacing your strings once a year anyway, because you will find that they will be dead. You won't necessarily notice it, but the strings will just have a certain dullness about them. So always bear that in mind. So Amy, if you are watching, which I think actually you are, I've just seen your question come up. Have I answered your question? If I haven't, then reword it again and I'll answer you again. So right, let's have a look and see what we've going on. More people have joined me now. Hello everyone. Hi Blue Rose. Okay, Chris Holland, on the subject of strings, if you're mixing strings, is it best to only mix with one brand? No, mix with whatever you like. Just mix, mixy mix. The whole thing with mixing is that it's a whole trial and error thing. I've got a certain recipe of strings that I have on my violin, and I just constantly keep. I don't bother changing anything because I know I really like it. So I do have all parastros, but that doesn't necessarily mean that parastros are the only thing to have. I have had, actually, I'm actually lying right now. It was back when I first started doing these lives several months ago. I think it must have been around about September time. It was a little bit warm in here, and right at the end of one of my lives, I really can't remember which one it is, you'll hear a massive crack, and that was my G string snapping at the top. It just happened live on video, and it wasn't until the stream had finished, I looked over and I saw my G string had snapped, and it was a very, very expensive Parastro extra high tension Passione string, but I'd had it on there quite a while, so fair enough. So at the moment I've got a D'Addario Zyx. I'll be honest with you, I really, really like it. I think with the G string, it's quite nice if you've got something quite thick and quite deep and quite metally anyway, because you want to get a nice sturdy sound out of the G string. So I've got Parastro, and then I've got a D'Addario. So mixing brands doesn't really matter. It's more about your violin, what kind of sound your violin generally gives. So my violin is very soft and it's very sweet. It does have a good bit of power up to on the higher registers and also on the lower registers as well. Not really so much in the middle, but that's fine. But this is a very soft and very sweet violin. So I find synthetic works very nicely on this, and gut string works very nicely. But I've just happened to find the combination. So buy whatever you want to buy, but bear in mind what it's going to complement or bring out of your violin. That's the only thing I would say. And what that is, I don't know, because I don't know the sound of your violin. But it really is just a case of experimentation. So to answer the question, yeah, but buy whatever you want. Just if you want something quite loud and quite sort of in your face, then look for maybe something a little bit more metally. But you want something to be a little bit sweeter with that as well, perhaps, and that kind of thing. Okay, so hopefully that's answered that one. Amy June, there you are. Just wondering, my violin has these cracks, but the little lines going across the violin on various places. What do you suggest I do with that? If you've got actual cracks in the violin, then you need to go and get that fixed. There isn't really anything else if that's what you're talking about, there isn't really anything else I can kind of suggest with that. If you've got cracks in the violin, that needs to be fixed. Tracy, Wood Yacht TN, hello from Tennessee, hi. Tracy says, due to extreme cold weather and the heat running non-stop, I'm having issues with slipping pegs. Is there anything you recommend to help with this? The only thing you can really do with the slipping pegs is you can try a bit of peg paste if you happen to have any of that sitting around. If you don't, which most people don't, what you're probably going to have to do is if they're slipping a little bit, what you're going to have to do is one by one, don't take all the pegs out all at once, but one by one, you're going to have to undo the peg and obviously take the string off a little bit, take the peg out, get a little bit of bar of soap, the sort of the, I don't know, Dove soap we have in the UK. I don't know what you guys have got in America, but just a bar of actual soap. Take the peg out, rub a little bit of the soap on the peg, kind of rub your fingers kind of around it, and then put the peg back in the hole, move it around a little bit, and then just put the string on, and then that should be kind of good to go. It seems a bit odd that the soap is going to give it grip, but it does. It gives it a little bit of slip, and it gives it grip at the same time. If you've overdone it with that and it's just slipping too much, take the peg out, get a little bit of talcum powder, just sort of in between your fingers, dab it around the peg just to take away some of that excess slip that you've got from the soap. You don't need to go mad with the soap, and just rub it on. It'll just look really weird, and then you can use your fingers to just kind of smush it into the peg. But if you've got too much, take a little bit of talcum powder and just sort of dampen that down, and you'll still have the soap on there, which is going to give it that grip, oddly enough. But the powder will just take away the excess of that. So the combination between the powder and the soap should help them work. Then when you are tune and you're moving your peg, you want to kind of be pushing your peg inwards. You want to be pushing your peg that way. So when I tune, I'm always pushing. Do you sort of see what I mean? I'm always pushing my peg in that way. I'm never just turning the peg this way. I'm kind of turning it, and I'm aiming to kind of push it in a little bit as well. Don't go too mad with that, because then you can actually split the peg box, but you don't ever just want to just, you don't want to turn it like you're turning a volume knob on a hi-fi system or something like that. You want to actually turn it, but push in a little bit as well. So see if that helps. Okay. Next one, DIY Slime Lab. Hello, when playing, start again, can't even read. When playing fast, how do you control shaky bow? I have sometimes put a bit of weight on my index finger and it's helped, but I'd love to be consistent playing without shaky bow. A couple of things that can cause the bow to shake. A lot of people think it's nerves, but I don't actually think that's true, because you can't be nervous when you're playing at home on your own. Maybe you are nervous. If it is a case of being nervous, then obviously you're just nervous. I find that the main culprit when my students are a little bit shaky, and I know they're not nervous, they know me, they've been coming for years, there's no way they can be nervous, but generally what that can be is that the bow is a little bit too tight. So let me put it there. Can you see the bow here has a little bit of, actually let me put it this way, that was a bit silly, wasn't it? So there, can you see the bow has a little bit of a dip just in there? So if I tighten this bow, bear with. So if I tighten it a little bit now, you can see, there we go. So you can see it is the perfect width all the way across, and there's no real kind of divot in here. If I undo this, let me do it for you actually. Can you just see, if I undo it a little bit more, can you just see it's a little bit, the width here at the end is much bigger, and then you've got a little bit of a dip in the middle there. So that's probably actually just a little bit too much, but I just did that just to show you. So what you want is a little bit of a dip in the bow, and that will help. That won't put so much tension on the bow, so the bow is going to bounce too much. Generally, when you're bouncing, is because people have got the bow. It's too tight. So try loosening the bow off a little bit. If you are having trouble kind of loosening your bow and your bow doesn't really want to respond to that, then you may be better off buying another bow. But generally that is the main culprit with that. The other thing can be your arm, and it can be your inconsistency when you are playing. But generally I do find it is mostly in the bow, because when you're actually playing, there's no reason for this arm to actually be shaky for any reason, unless obviously you have got some, if you have got neurological issues or anything like that does cause a bit of shakiness, then obviously that's going to contribute to that. But let's assuming you don't have any of that and you're just, regular guy playing, then what's going to probably cause most of the shakiness is probably going to be the bow. It could be a combination of your arm being inconsistent as well, generally because the bow isn't set up maybe as nicely as it could. So try the bow first, loosen off the bow and see if that makes any difference, and go from there. Right, Katie. Hi, Katie. Hi, Alison. Last time I put Zayek set on my violin, it sounded crap. And when back putting the old obligato was much better. Yeah, the Zayek strings, they're nice. Zayek is by D'Addario. Off the top of my head, I haven't looked in such a long time. Off the top of my head, I want to say they're steel strings. And I think they're very bright. Without looking it up, I can't remember what they said, but I think most of the D'Addario strings are going to be they're very bright, they're very kind of loud in a good way, but they are very bright because they're metal strings. So again, I think metal strings don't suit all violins. If you're going to put a metal string on a violin, you'll probably get away with putting it on the G string. On the rest of them, maybe not so much, but no, obligatos are the ones that I use in my middle two. So I use, obviously apart from this one, which is a D'Addario at the moment, what I normally do is I have a Parastro gold label on the E string or an olive on the E string. For the middle two, I have Parastro obligatos, and for the G string, I have Parastro Passioni in extra high tension. So that's what I normally have on my violin. And because most of those are, the olive is a gut string, everything else is synthetic, I believe, off the top of my head. I haven't looked in such a long time. I'm due to change my strings now, actually. Those just suit my violin. So yeah, it's just a trial and everything. But you might find if you've got a more softer violin that the metal strings are just not gonna be suited to you. LGM Cat, hi from Canada. Hello. What is the difference between a silver and aluminium D string? I see this on the option for the Zyx. Thank you, Loretta. Not really a lot of difference. I've tried them both. The Parastro Obbligato that I have on my D string, I have Parastro Obbligato on the A and the D string, and with the Obbligato I can choose a silver D or I can choose an aluminium D. It's just, as far as I'm understanding, it's kind of just more of the coating, but in terms of what it actually does, I can't really tell the difference. I've tried both. I can't really tell the difference. If there's a difference in price, just go with the cheapest one. But I think with the amount of difference it's going to make that you're going to notice, I personally, I don't think it's worth it. But buy whatever you want to buy, but try them both and see if they make a difference to you. But I doubt you'll probably see enough of a difference to warrant kind of going for either, or it'll just be a 50-50 pick. Okay, Zandre Alexander, I don't have a professional tutor. How do I start practicing and playing faster on my own? Do you mean that you just want to play some faster pieces, or you just want to learn to play generally fast? If that's the case, the way to play fast is to start really slow and just work up to it. So whatever it is that you're playing, I'm assuming the piece of music that you're trying to attempt to play is a fast piece of music. You can't just go straight in, boom, and playing it at that kind of speed. It doesn't work that way because you've got to learn the music first. So you go through, it's no different than any other learning process. Go through the learning process. So you're going to learn your piece of music. Let's say you were playing, I've got a good one from here. This is my songbook 1. I think it's the last piece in the book. Where are we? So yeah, Drunken Sailor. Drunken Sailor is the last piece in my book. So so that's going to get, that's fast. It's, it's like a shanty piece of music, isn't it? So you can play that really slowly and you can build up to it and play it fast and everybody's clapping along and it's getting faster and faster and faster. So with this one, you would just tackle it as you would any other piece of music. It doesn't really matter whether this is supposed to be a fast piece of music or not, because you've still got to learn it first. I still have to learn how to play that. So I'm going to probably start with a slow speed. And play it at that kind of speed. Put a metronome on if you feel like you really want to do that. And then play it a few times at that speed, and then just gradually speed it up. When you're trying to speed things up, it is a lot easier to do that with a metronome, actually, because then a metronome will pick the speed for you, more or less. I know you've done it on the dial, but it will dictate that speed for you, and it will keep you consistent at that speed. And you can just jump up 10 beats per minute each time, or 5 beats per minute, whatever you want to do. So start off really slow. Make sure you can play it all consistently well without any stopping or starting or any little bits and bobs. Make sure you can do it perfectly at that speed quite a few times, and then increase the speed and keep going until you find a speed where it's a little bit troublesome. Once you get to your speed that you can't really quite do, take it back to your previous speed and play it again and again and again and again, because that's at the point where you need to get your fingers used to playing at that speed. Then once you've nailed that, and you might be doing that for about a week, 2 weeks, something like that, then you can gradually go again and increase. So this is all over a period of time. You'll get to a certain point in one practice session where you'll start at maybe 80 beats per minute, for example, and you'll be able to play it quite easily with that, maybe 6 times through, no problem. Try it at 95 beats per minute. Do exactly the same thing. Yep, no problem. Keep going until you kind of start to come out of your comfort zone. Once you're out of your comfort zone and it's all gone to pot, go back to the fastest speed that you can play it perfectly at and sit at that for about a week to 2 weeks, just playing it over and over and over. Do not move. Do not move higher. Sit at it for 2 weeks. It's important you do that because you've got to let the speed set in. You've got to let things set in. You can't just do it once or twice. It might just be a fluke or a coincidence, or the fact that you've just warmed up really, really well that day, and then you come back to it the next day and then you can't do it. So it proves that. So go to the height of your speed limit, bring it back a little bit and sit on that for a week to 2 weeks. Then you can go again and start to gradually increase. And that's how I would do that. Right, Josh, hello from Northern California. Hello. Okay, Sanika, hello from India. Hello. I was learning the violin for a few years and then I stopped. Restarting now. Should I change the strings now? Also, the bow looks a bit dull. I don't think you necessarily need to change the strings. It's not... Unless your violin has been sitting there in a really dusty atmosphere and, the strings are really, 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 really old and crappy, then I might just, if you're restarting and you're in a position to do so, I would probably just change the strings just anyway. You'll probably find that they will be a bit dull. The only exception would be that if I were to put a new set of strings on, they were on a month and then I didn't play for a couple of years, I'd probably be inclined to just keep them just purely for the fact that I'd only had them on a month and I want to get my money's worth. But the strings aren't just going to die over time. I mean, they're going to oxidize in the air a little bit, but let's assuming you've kept it in a case. Let's assuming that you've kept the humidity fine. It hasn't gone to extreme cold or extreme heats or anything like that, although that affects more of the wood than just the strings. But assuming, the violin's been kept in a good situation, keep the strings. But if you feel like the strings are just old, just replace them. But yeah, there's no right or wrong there. If you want to do that, do it. You'll find that the violin will just come back to life. It's more of a... I find it's more of a mental thing as well. If the violin is shiny and new, everything is operating well, any sound discrepancies or any issues or any problems are going to be down to you and not the instrument. The last thing you want to do is when you're actually playing is trying to decipher between the violin sounding, is it the violin that's sounding a bit rubbish or is it me? You want the violin to be in tip-top condition so that there's nothing wrong with the violin. Your instrument is perfect. It's me that's the problem because I can fix things if they're the problem. But when I'm trying to figure out, is it me? Is it the bow? Is it the violin? I just don't know. That's when potentially you're going to come back to situations. Plus, if you haven't been playing for a long time, you just don't need those kind of hindrances. So if you can, I would just go ahead and replace them if the violin's just been sitting there dormant in the back of a broom cupboard for a couple of years. Right. Richard, hello. Everything nearly went then. I'm trying to pronounce that name. I'm just going to say, hey, I'm William from Uganda. I'm not going to pronounce your name. How can I learn and perfect my violin practice? Can you be a little bit more specific with that? And then I'll come back and answer your question. Let's move on in the meantime. Slime Lab again. Thank you so much. I just loosened my bow and played it, and now it doesn't shake at all when I played G major scale. There you go. See, 9 times out of 10, it's just going to be the bow. So many people have their bow too tight and they don't even realize it. They don't even think that's a thing because they're too busy making the bow super, super tight. Otherwise, the hairs are going to be loose. The other thing, going back to this, but it's more to do with getting a nice bow tightness. Every time we finish playing the violin, we want to loosen the bow. So when I finish the live stream today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen my bow. You can see the hairs are now just, not really doing much. So I'm going to loosen off my bow. I kind of like to loosen it sort of till I get a couple of mil there, but enough that I can sort of see that it's very clearly loosened. And then I will put my violin back in the case. And then when I get it out again tomorrow or Sunday, whatever, then I'm going to tighten up my bow again. So after each practice, after each session that you have the violin out, always loosen the bow. You don't really want to keep your bow in tension. I have kept my bow in tension for a couple of days, especially if I've got a few weddings on the trot. And it really is just easy to keep my bow just in its case because it's much easier to get it out and, it just saves time, doesn't it? So for a couple of days you can get away with it, but ideally you don't really want to be doing that. So always loosen your bow at the end. And then when you tighten the bow, let me take it back here. Keep tightening the bow until you see that the hair is tight, but you just want a little bit of a curve in there. If I now tighten this, let's put it there. If I keep tightening this, it seems too straight. Can you see it's kind of moved? It's right here. It's right where the corner of my room is actually behind me. You can see it's moved there. So I'm going to loosen it off, and you'll just see it. There you go. So you can just see the curve coming in right there, but it's not too loose on here. So that is about where you want the bow. If you're playing it and you just feel like it's just a little bit too flimsy, just give it another kind of just a little quarter of a turn. That's all you need just to tighten it. But you always want to have that nice curve there. So that's generally what you should do when you're tightening up your bow anyway. Righty. Missed. My violin produces a weird sound when I play B, first finger on an A string. It's kind of crack, especially when I play close to the bridge. I even changed my string. It's not happened with any other notes. Little cracks and whistles and buzzes and things like that can be quite difficult to identify the violin, to identify on the violin. It's very difficult to kind of pinpoint what they are, especially if I don't, especially if I can't play it myself or anything. But I can only say sometimes if it's just an odd buzz, then it's obviously going to be some sort of vibration coming out from somewhere. So when I get something like that, sometimes it can be my necklace. I haven't got any necklaces on at the moment, but sometimes it can just be that my necklace is just sitting on the metal part here, or just the wrong part of the violin, and I get a little bit of a buzz or something. It could be that you've got something inside the violin, so give the violin a bit of a shake and see if you've got something kind of, you might have a little, I don't know, a little grain of sand or a little stone, I don't know, whatever you've got in there, and in which case you'll just have to shake it until it comes out of the F holes. Have a look at what's going on in the peg box. You might have a little something that's kind of touching. If you've got any kind of buzzing or any noise when you're playing, it's going to be something's touching something. That's why we get the vibration. So just have a little look. It could be something around here if you've got some fine tuners. It could be that the fine tuners are a little bit loose. Always check those as well, because sometimes when you are moving your fine tuners, you don't really realize how high or low they go. So the little bit underneath the fine tuner, you can't really see that because it's black, but when you have a look at yours, there's a bit that kind of comes out as you're moving this around, so that can be a little bit loose in there. So it can be something to do with a fine tuner. Usually it's something to do with a fine tuner, or it's something that's got stuck in the actual body of the violin. That would be my guesses. Unlikely to be something around the peg box. If there's completely nothing identifiable, then it could be that you've got something like a crack or a slit or something in the violin that's just causing an extra buzz. But other than that, I can't really kind of shed any more light on it, unfortunately. But if it's just happening on that one string, have a good old look at that string and see if it's touching anything else, and then pay attention to the fine tuner if you've got one on those. Right, Joe says, my index finger is touching the neck. I feel like I'm strangling the neck. I know I need to get out of that habit when I get to do vibrato so I can slide my hand. Any tips? So index finger is touching the neck. I feel like I'm it's obviously something that you're going to be doing here. It could be just as simple as you need to sort out what your grip is doing up here. So I don't know whether you've got a shoulder rest or you've got a pad or you've got something. I obviously haven't got anything here, but you need to make sure that you've got control of the violin like this. So I don't have a shoulder rest. It's much easier to do that if you've got a shoulder rest. So use a shoulder rest if you feel like you need to, but you need to be able to hold the violin here. So all I'm doing here is just moving my hand up. So when I let go, the violin wants to slip down. That's fine. And then all my hand does is just bring it up. And then as I'm moving up and down the violin or I'm doing vibrato, I'm not actually really doing anything in my hand. Someone could quite easily pull this out of my hand, and this hand wouldn't even know what's hit it. But my neck would, because my neck is what's holding on to it. So my neck is holding on for dear life. And then it gives me a horrible double chin. My neck is holding on for dear life. Ignore the double chin. But my hand isn't. My hand is just kind of supporting the violin, moving the fingers into the right positions, doing a bit of vibrato, whatever it is. When I'm doing vibrato as well, I'm not actually touching anything. So you know, my thumb is kind of free from anything. Nothing's kind of, I just want the fingertip to be kind of touching there. So make sure that you've got a good grip with the neck of the violin. It sounds to me like that's all it is. If you're gripping too much with your left hand, that indicates to me that the left hand is doing all the work. If you let go with your left hand, the violin will drop on the floor, but it shouldn't. If you let go with your left hand, the violin should not drop on the floor. Your chin should pick up the slack with that. Okay, hope that has helped. Okay, I think we're getting through them today, so that's good. Apologies if I've missed any. Just if I've missed your comment, write them again so I can see it. DIY slab, you're on a roll tonight. Also, when I play vibrato on my fourth finger, I notice it's quite hard to do without being tense. Any tips on how to get to the same level of my other fingers? No. Fourth finger vibrato is really, really hard. We all hate doing it. Nobody likes doing fourth finger vibrato because you've simply just got nothing there. In fact, the little finger, the fourth finger and the third finger, obviously when we're talking about playing the violin, not on our actual hand, when we're doing vibrato on the fourth finger and the third finger, they're the two weakest fingers because we've only got tendons there, and you can't train a tendon. A tendon is not a muscle. So they are just the weakest part of our hands anyway, as we know. And then the little finger is just the worst part. It's just the weakest. There is nothing you can do except just practice to get good at it. So that's all I can say. I mean, my fourth finger vibrato isn't really that great either. Hang on, let me turn my microphone down a second so it's not too loud. So this is my let me go through the vibratos. This is my first finger. Second. Third. Pretty consistent so far. And then fourth. So bear in mind, I've been doing vibrato for a really, really long time, and I've been playing for a really, really long time. But even you can tell with my first, second and third fingers were good. They were nice and consistent. There was nothing wrong with them. The fourth finger is just really difficult because I'm trying to vibrato and my whole hand, I've got the weight of the other three fingers. So the whole hand is coming along as well. So not only is it just very weak anyway, but the fourth finger is trying to vibrato with all this kind of excess baggage going along with it. It's just, I can't really think of any kind of real tips that are going to help you. You just got to work harder with it. The fourth finger is really, really hard to do vibrato. So this is why we don't like doing the fourth finger vibrato. What we would do in an ideal situation would be something like... So instead of doing that fourth finger vibrato, why would I do that when I can go into third position and play that note with my second finger and do a beautiful vibrato? So if I do it back in first position again... Why would I do that when I can just do that? So there are kind of cheats around fourth finger vibrato. We don't like doing it for a reason because it is just not very good. No matter how hard you work on it, it just isn't going to be that good. You can get it pretty close, but it'll never be that great because of the fingers, and that's just the way the hand is made. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to try and engineer it somehow so that I move up into third position, maybe here, or 1, 2, 3, or maybe I can use my third finger to slide, whatever the kind of the music dictates, and I can get away with it. I'm not going to do a fourth finger vibrato unless it is the only choice that I have. I'm going to try and slip into another position to do that. So if you can get away with not doing fourth position, that would probably be my only tip. But if you have to do fourth finger vibrato, get away with doing it, get away with moving to another position with a better finger, the first, second or third, then I would recommend that you do that. So that would be my tip. Or if you do, then you just have to work extra hard with it. Right, what else have we got? Shannon, hello, I'm following your course and I've reached the third, fourth finger exercises and notice a metal tangy sound while playing. It's pretty distracting. Is this normal? Am I pressing too hard? Again, so that could just be something that's going on with your violin. The violin shouldn't be doing that. So same thing as applies, as I said earlier on in the video. Just have a check to make sure there's nothing moving around, nothing buzzing around, nothing hanging off your bow, nothing on your neckwear, any necklaces or, earrings. I've been known to have earrings that have caused buzz for some strange reason. So when I've gone to play at weddings, I generally can't have any necklaces, or I can only have fine jewellery that, very tight up here. I can't have nice, I can't have anything nice. You can't have anything nice when you're playing the violin. Other than that, just have a check to see if there's any buzzing going on with the fine tuners. But no, there shouldn't be any sound. But trying to identify what it is, obviously it's difficult for me to do, not having the violin in front of me. Just have a look around is all I can say. It's got nothing to do with the dominance, just it will probably happen with anything. Carlos, much appreciated, all great advices. You're welcome. And hello, just me and I. Hi, Tessa, just going to check my bow. Yep. How are we doing for time? Oh, we're nearly finished. Guitarist of 18 years, wanting to transition to the violin. Where do I start? I have the perfect place for you to start. This is a answer for Josh Thompson's question. Why don't you start with my 1 to 30 violin course that I'm shamelessly plugging right now. This is the book course here. It's a 1 to 30 violin course, 100% downloadable, $60. First 10 lessons are absolutely free. Everything's downloadable, available anywhere in the world. The link, go and check the link out underneath this video. The materials that you need for the first 10 lessons are absolutely free. So it'll take you to my Google Drive, where you'll click on the PDF sheet that says start here in capital letters, and that will tell you exactly what you need for all 10 lessons. It'll tell you all the materials and everything you'll need, right down to your violin and bow, down to any PDFs that you might need to get from the folder and when and that kind of thing. And then it'll give you a link to the videos that you can watch. So the first 10 lessons you'll need to watch with the videos, and you'll be able to download all of the free materials that you need. You just literally need a violin, a bow, and your enthusiasm and some time. And that will get you going for the first 10 lessons. After the first 10 lessons, you will then want to go on to my Songbook 1, which is 10 well-known classical pieces arranged by me that are all going to be the same level that you will be at once you finish the first 10 lessons. This is a little bit harder than that, obviously, because there has to be some transition at some point. But once you've done this, then you'll move on to the next set of lessons and so on. So you don't need the course is fully comprehensive and all in-house, so you don't need anything else, and it guarantees to take you from a complete beginner to a very accomplished intermediate player. So I will say though that the guitar, in my opinion, doesn't really have any transferable skills to the violin. I did dabble with the guitar several years ago just to satisfy my own curiosity, and a bit of a bet with one of my online students, Katie, you know who you are. But I haven't touched it since. It was giving me quite bad calluses on my not here. It was giving me bad calluses on my fingertips, and that was causing a problem because it was just interfering with me playing. And then when I'm obviously playing at weddings, I can't feel what I'm doing because it was giving me calluses. So that was kind of my excuse to stop. But I found that there were no real transferable skills from the violin to the guitar. The only real skill is the fact that you both have music in common, but in terms of transferable, not really. The guitar has strings, the violin has strings, but they're completely different, and they're done in a completely different way. When you're playing the guitar, you'll find that your fingers are spread out a lot more, and you've got frets, so you're just working in a very different way because you're working chordally. But when I do still have my violin, my guitar, sorry, yeah, it's up in the loft. I do still have that. When the violin, you don't have any frets there, so you might have some little dots that you've got there. So the fingers are working much close together, and your fingers are what are going to be giving you the tune. So even though they both have strings in common, I wouldn't say they're particularly, if you can play the guitar, you're going to be off and away on the violin. They are two completely different instruments, but that shouldn't be something to stop you. It's just a completely different instrument, but you will know music, so you'll be able to identify whether something sounds right or wrong, or anything like that. Right, one more question, which we just have. Just me and I. Any tips for how to bow straight? When I bow, sometimes I bow and it slides all over the place. The best tip that I can give you for that is to play in front of a mirror. Just a good old-fashioned front of the mirror playing. It's the only way you're going to do that. Once you are playing in front of a mirror, so let me just move my chair back. So let me use what I'm looking at in the screen now as my mirror. So I move this way. So at the moment, you're probably going to be playing, and doing all that kind of thing because you don't really know where this part of the arm is going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bow in front of the mirror. I'm not going to bow anything because it's loud. And I'm just going to try and keep my bow as straight as I can. Actually, I will play something. Let me turn you down a bit. So I'm just trying to bow as straight as I possibly can whilst I'm looking in the mirror. It's actually very difficult to actually look in the mirror and bow and keep it straight. But what I need to note when I'm doing that, you can't just play in front of the mirror and play everything in front of the mirror and just not register anything. What I'm actually noting in my mind is where this arm is going. And I'm kind of imagining in my mind that it's going here. I've got to get it to this little imaginary point that I've got literally right here where my nail is pointing. So what I'm going to do is when I'm going to bow, I'm going to go there. And if I draw a line from there to here, it's the line of where my bow is going, really, isn't it? So I'm just following that. It's like a tightrope, isn't it? From your violin to this kind of imaginary bit here. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just imagining. I'm just pulling my arm. I'm trying to lift it up so you can see. I'm just pulling my arm from the violin to that point, and I just want to keep it on that point. So when you're playing in front of the mirror, and you understand where that point is in the mirror, then you can focus on actually looking with your eyes and trying to get your hand to that point, trying to keep it straight as well. You've got like a foot to go, so you haven't really got too much kind of bowing to do. But that's what I would do. And then just every now and then when you think you've got that, just look up in the mirror and just have another sneaky look just to make sure that your bow is in a straight line. So that is how you're gonna bow straight, but it's all in the feel. You need to feel where that arm is going, and eventually the arm will just go there. The arm will just take that natural course. But what we don't want to do is have the arm going round. Generally, this part of the shoulder and the arm never goes any further back. The elbow just extends out that way. So mirror is going to be the best thing. Okay. One more. Do we have, what is that question? LGM Cat, I've heard the bow actually ends up directly in front of you. Yeah, if you're talking about your hand, it more or less does. It's more or less on a diagonal, where if you're playing the violin, a lot of people think they've got to pull the bow backwards, but it actually goes sort of diagonally in front of you to keep it straight. It's just a little bit weird, but don't forget the violin is not in front of you, so nothing's going out to the side. The violin is out to the side, so it's like you've got to push the arm diagonally in front of you to get it straight. Okay. Let's finish there. Thank you all very, very much for joining me. I apologise if I haven't answered your question. I think I've gotten around to answering everybody's questions. I will see you all same time next week. So if you've got any questions, bag them all up, write them all down, and let me know what they are next week. I look forward to seeing you then. Hi, Ralph. Nice to see you. You've just popped in at the end there. Yep, you're welcome, Shannon and Tracy. So thank you all very much for joining me. I will see you in next week's live, same time, next Friday. And yeah, have a good week and have a good weekend. Bye.